Sir, 1 minute to go.
Gopal,
Sir.
எனக்கு கொஞ்சம் உங்க வீட்டுக்கு ஃபோன் பண்ணி வெளியில ரொம்ப உறக்க பேசிட்டு இருக்காங்க, கொஞ்சம் சொல்லிடு. தீபாக்கு ஹாலில் பேசிட்டு இருக்காங்க. இல்லை, ஒரு நிமிஷம் கழிச்சு ஆரம்பிக்கலாம். ஜஸ்ட் 1 minute டைம் கூட எனக்கு.
சார்.
Okay, Gopal.
Yes, sir.
Can I?
Sir, you can start, sir.
Good morning, everybody. This is Ranganathan again with you. And this week, this Saturday, we are going to have an interesting topic, 20th century. Let me get onto this topic. Give me a minute. Now, 1999-2000 was a time when they were changing into the second millennium, and that time all the software companies became busy changing the 99 to 00. Even the President Bill Clinton from US was there, and then he suggested that we should change in Japan all the software to 2000. Otherwise, flights in Narita could be delayed, Shinkansen could be delayed. Many people got worried, looked at it. And that's the time many of the Indian software companies also made tons of money because most of the applications were running on mainframe. They had to read through the application. Wherever they find 99, they have to convert it into 00 in simple terms. But they all said, we have to do an impact analysis. What will happen if it doesn't happen? So they all gave a quote. The Japanese companies said, such a huge amount, we could have developed our own smaller version of software. We don't have to be on the mainframe. Now, that's because that's one big way that many software companies thought they could make money. But the Japanese, they all did their work between morning 9:30 to evening 5:36, then went and had in a nearby booth something to eat. Then they went back, again started working till the last train, got the first train in the morning, came to the office till 9:30, worked on this Y2K, year 2000, and then went on to their. So at the same time, without diverting many of the business to Indian software companies, Japanese software companies, they completed the job by themselves. So that way, 2000 was a very remarkable year. Now, Japanese postal services, they issued 17 series 1 to 17, starting from the 1999 August 23rd, and then went up to 2000 December 22. Now, this series, each series had 10 stamps, and 10 stamps also had big stories behind them. And we found it very difficult to cover all the 17 in one shot. So So today we'll be doing the first 6 series. That means we'll be talking to you about the stories behind the first 60 stamps. Then next week we'll do the second series 2 and then series 3. Now let's get going. Now this is on the left hand side you see Natsume Soseki sitting with his hand on his forehead, and that's the first series that was released on 23rd August 1999. It has got 10 stamps, and then the stamp has got a 50 yens denomination. Each stamp is 50 yen, and also 80 yen stamps. It's a combination 50 and 80 yen stamps, and they made almost 70 lakh copies to be sold. It was printed in 6 colors, and the sheet had 10 images, and each of the images had 50. Each of the sheet had 50 yens, 2 sheets, and balance 80 yens. Now let's look into what is that they have. Each of the stamp that you have, they are only 28 by 37 millimeters size, all printed in photogravure, and then value was 50, and I'm just talking about the stamp size is the same, only value has changed. Now let's look into the first stamp. Natsume Soseki, the man whose figure you see in the 1000 yen stamp there, Natsume Soseki was a Japanese novelist. He is best known around the world for his novels Kokoro, Butchan, I Am a Cat, Kasamakura, and his unfinished work Light and Darkness. He was also a scholar of the British literature and writer of haiku, kanshi, and fairy tales. From 1984 until 2004, his portrait appeared on front of the Japanese 1000 yen note. Now we have got 2 stamps from him on this series, both 50 yens. One is showing the I Am Cat. I Am Cat was a satirical novel written by him between 1905 and 1906 by Soseki. And it is about the Japanese society during that Meiji period, 1868 to 1912, particularly uneasy mix of Western culture and the Japanese traditions. Then that's a very well sold novel. Then we had the next novel called The Little Master. Little Master was by again Natsume Soseki. This story is based on the author's personal experience as a teacher dispatched to Matsuyama on the island of Shikoku. Soseki was born in Tokyo, and dwelling in Matsuyama was his first experience living elsewhere. The novel is set in the middle school in Matsuyama and present-day Hime Prefecture, and he was working in Matsuyama Higashi High School, Eastern High School. Now, this also gave rise to he was a teacher, Butchan teacher, and then that's why last time we also showed in the railway the toy train Butchan, that is born out of Natsume Soseki's idea. I mean, so the Butchan is a toy train that is running in Matsuyama. I had the opportunity to visit Matsuyama and travel in the train also. Now, Japanese poet Yosono Akiko, 1978 to 1942, first collection of poems, Midaregami. Midaregami means tangled hair, contains some 400 poems, was published in 1901. This bundle is a swirling experience of uninhibited sensuality, was a hymn of praise on the love and early fierce emotions of youth. They caused a storm of protest because of their unbridled expression of female sexuality. This ran counter to the Confucianism of the Meiji period, which tried to suppress and hide sexuality. That is a novel by Akiko Sensei. Then we have a stamp on Ninki-kan. Ninki-kan was the first dedicated movie theater. All these things happened in the 1999, 2000. In Japan, originally a hall built by Asakusa's Roku Theatre district to present spectacles featuring electricity. Denki. Denki is electricity in Japanese. It quickly became a symbol of the new phenomena of the motion pictures. On the right-hand side, you see a huge crowd in front of the Denki Khan. That is for the release of Cleopatra and Antony. So that is, I think, Cleopatra's movie, for which there was a huge crowd. Japanese love going to movies. And to me, see, a couple of my boys whom I took them to Japan to work in the software industry as software engineers. Few of them have also started, apart from their work, film distributors. They take Indian films, both South and North, and then exhibit them in Tokyo, Osaka area. Okay. And then many cinemas around Japan were later created that borrowed the name Denki Khan. Okay. Now, 1903, Tokyo horse-drawn railway changed its motive power to electricity. Before that, on the right-hand side, if you see on the Nihonbashi Bridge, there's a tram car going, pulled by a horse, and also in the modern Ginza, that's the time when there were two horses pulling a tram car. So that is how tram car was powered in the earlier days. And then later on, it was taken under the name Tokyo Electric Railway, or Toden, commenced operations between Shinagawa and Shimbashi. And of course, Shimbashi is also very famous because that's where the first steam locomotive started, operating in Shimbashi, in Tokyo, and Yokohama in Sakurangicho. And then the next stamp is talking about Odajiro. Odajiro Kawakami's first plays were political and nationalistic in intent. After he and his wife Sada Yako had performed in Europe and America, 1899 and 1902, they introduced to Japan adaptations of Shakespeare, Maurice Meteorlock, and Victorian Sarodo. So you can see both the actress Sada and her husband Odajiro Kawakami, and so they're very famous artists. So they find a place in this. So this talks about incidents, places, and people who are all made their name somewhere in this one century. So the 20th century stamp in the 180. It is not that there are no other people. There are others also, but for different reasons, they want to have a mix. Therefore, they have introduced these people through these stamps. Now, the impact of opening doors of Japan to West brought Western system of dress and handshake, which are the visible changes in this. The Western education, food, infrastructure became a part of Japanese lifestyle. Japanese being learners and technology and arts were well flourishing. Even in Edo period, that is before the Meiji period, when Japan was a closed country, even at that time, there were people who were learning and they had their own technology, which they have done very well. Like the 1,000-year clock that they have made and all that. And Japanese adopted the Western lifestyle quickly, while still retain their tradition and culture. I would like to mention something very interesting here. When President Barack Obama went to US, and he visited Hiroshima also, and people in Hiroshima was expecting him to make an apology for the atom bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. But in US, they said, whatever it is, you should diplomatically say, but never apologize for Hiroshima. However, Obama is a very tall gentleman, and the Emperor of Japan is short. So Obama bowed down almost 90 degrees to Japanese Emperor, His Majesty, and that is like a Japanese style. At the same time, he also adopted the Western style of shaking hands. So many American newspapers criticized him. Was he trying to apologize for Hiroshima? But he never apologized for Hiroshima, very diplomatically, he said. So, but people in Japan thought he was bowing 90 degrees means you're really apologizing for something. So that's sort of a mix between the tradition and the Western thing. That is always something that I remember about Obama's bowing down and also shaking hands at the same time. Then the Sumo Arena was completed in 1909 in Ryogoku area. Ryogoku Gakuki-kan known as Ryogoku Sumo Hall or Kokugikan Arena, is an indoor sporting arena located in the Yokohama neighborhood, bordering to Ryogoku neighborhood of Sumida, one of the 23 wards of Tokyo, Japan, next to the Edo Tokyo Museum. In his third building, Tokyo associated with the name Gakugikan, including Kuramae Gakugikan. The current building was opened in 1985 and has a capacity of 11,098 people. So, sumo being a national sport, their Sumo Arena definitely deserved a place in this 170 stamps. Then, the Russo Japanese War was brought between Empire of Japan and Russian Empire. I'm sorry, it's not the Emperor, it's the Empire. During the 1904-1905, over rival imperial ambitions of Manchuria and the Korean Empire. The major theaters of military operations were located in Liaodong Peninsula and Mukden in southern Manchuria, and the seas around Korea, Japan, and LOC. Although Russia suffered a number of defeats, Emperor Nicholas II remained convinced that Russia could still win if kept on fighting. He chose to remain engaged in the war and await outcomes of key naval battles. As hope of victory dissipated, he continued the war to preserve the dignity of Russia by averting humiliating peace. The war was eventually concluded with the Treaty of Portsmouth on the 5th of September and August 1905, mediated by US President Theodore Roosevelt. Japan became the first Asian country to win a war against a European country. This is a very, very creditable achievement. I think that's only still on record. That's the only Asian country which has done this. So they deserve a place in this. Now, if you look at this 20th century stamp series 2, if you look at the series 2, this the area is 28.05 by 36.5. Okay. Now it has got on the top, if you see, you have a flight. Okay. The first airship, which is it's a Saturn stamp, and therefore the airplane is there. That is, being a Saturn, it is 56 by 37 millimeters, whereas all other single stamps, if you see, are different size. I've also shown you the size. Where is this? The image area 28.05 by 36.5. Okay. Now we'll see what are these second series of stamps are about. Who are the people or what are the places that are there in the stamp now? Now, okay, a biplane Kaishiki number 1 and airship Yamadashiki number 1. Kaishiki number 1 was the first successful Japanese designed and constructed airplane. It was designed by Captain Yoshitoki Tokugawa and was the first flown from him from October 13, 1991 at Tokorozawa. And Tokorozawa is a place where I also lived. And when I first went to do my marketing for my company, almost most of my boys, they lived with me in and around Tokorozawa, around the main station, Tokorozawa East. So people used to call Tokorozawa as Indomura, Indian village. Now, you can see the picture of Yamadashiki 1 on the side and biplane on the Saturn thing. The gondola was an open concept made of tubes in triangular cross section and was almost as long as the balloon envelope itself. It hung below the envelope. If you see, there's a huge balloon. Below that, the gondola is hung. It's hung below that. The engine was in the middle of the gondola. They have an engine on the gondola. The first flight to Yamadashiki was lifted from Osaka. Okay. Now, the brainchild of the Army Reserve Lieutenant Shirase, the Antarctica Expedition, Shirase, and last time also, no, we'll be talking about them a little later. Antarctica Expedition was a privately funded expedition. He and his team could claim some significant achievements. This included the first landing on the coast of King Edward VII land, and fastest recorded sledging journey, and the most easterly point along the Antarctica coast. That's after which this concluded the first landing. And then, according to course, to that date, reached by a ship was that point. That is the easterly point along the Antarctica coast that was achieved by the Japanese. It also became the fourth team to travel beyond 80 degrees south mark. So that is the Shirase's team that went to Antarctica. Now, children singing school song book, Shoka. Shoka is a children's song book. That is a book that was published in 1910. That's the picture of the book I've shown on the right. Now, Shoka, Mombusho Shoka is a gen of Japanese song, commonly taught and sung in public school. Shoka also refers to one subject in the former elementary schools in Japan. In 1872, Meiji government promulgated the first educational constitution called Gakusei and set up a Shoka as a subject. The book was mainly a collection of Western folk music, tunes with Japanese lyrics, and that was developed with a collaboration between Japanese educator Shuji and American music educationist Masan, and a team of language experts. The songbook recorded 33 songs in the first edition. In 1888, the first privately published collection of Shoka songs circulated in Japan. In 1893, Ministry of Education selected 8 Shoka songbooks for imperial holidays. In these books, songs with the traditional Japanese pentatonic scales were performed. Shoka songs sounded more familiar to the Japanese people and got more popularity because the book was Western music with the Japanese lyrics. So people could easily adopt it. Then Dr. Hideo Noguchi. Hideo Noguchi stamps, many stamps have been published. He is a man who first is a Japanese bacteriologist who in 1911 discovered the syphilis agent as a cause for progressive paralytic disease. In 1928, the Japanese government awarded Noguchi the Order of the Rising Sun Gold and Silver Rays, which represent the second highest 8th class association with the award. The Japanese government established Hideo Noguchi Africa Prize in July 2006 as a new International Medical Research and Services Award to mark the official visit of Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi to Africa in 2006 and the 80th anniversary of Dr. Noguchi. Dr. Noguchi is dead. Now we have the Japanese wolf. Japanese wolf is also known as Honshu wolf. Honshu is out of 4 major islands, because there are something like 3,600 or 4,000 smaller islands include here. But the major 4 islands, the biggest of them is the Honshu. This is also known as the Honshu wolf, the Japanese wolf. It's an extinct subspecies of the grey wolf that was once endemic to the islands of Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu in the Japanese archipelago. The Japanese wolf is considered to be extinct as the last Japanese wolf was captured and killed in Washikaguchi, Nara Prefecture on January 23rd, 1905. So at least it should find a place now in the 20th series stamp, okay, even though there is no more available. And then Kanaguri Shizuo and Mishima Yoshiko at the opening parade of Olympic 1912. Who are these people? Why are they mentioned here? Okay, that's a very interesting thing. 2 athletes represented Japan in the National Olympic debut were Kanaguri Shizuo and Mishima Yahiko. Mishima advanced to the semifinals in one of the three events, but did not start the semifinal race. Kanaguri abandoned the marathon duel due to heat because he returned to Japan. He never notified the race officials that he is quitting and then is returning to Japan. They tracked him back to Japan, and Kanaguri was asked, because it should not be in the history of marathon, a guy did not finish the race. So he was asked to go back, and 54 years after, okay, he finished the marathon 54 years after, but with an unofficial scorecard. That is the now. The next stamp goes for, and why are they both there? Because they were the first entrants in the Olympic Games in 1912. That's why both of them are there in the stamp. Takarazuka Review was founded by Kobayashi Ichizo, an industrialist turned politician and president of Hankyu Railways in Takarazuka in Japan, 1913. The city was the terminus of the Hankyu line from Osaka and already a popular tourist destination because of its hot springs. Kobayashi believed that it was the ideal spot to open an attraction in some kind that would boost train ticket sales and draw more business to Takarazuka. The Takarazuka Review is a Japanese all-female musical theater troupe based in Takarazuka, Hyogo Prefecture. Hyogo Prefecture is in the Kobe area. Japan established by Hankyu, they also have their own Hankyu Railways group in 1913. Next is in the series 2. Next is Sumiko Matsi, who was a Japanese actress and singer. Matsi first became famous in 1911 for a portrayal in Nora, a dollhouse. Portrayal in Nora in a dollhouse. In 1913, after establishing Geijitsu's theater troupe with the Shingeki director Ungetsu Shimamura, she became an acclaimed actress thanks to the performance of the role in Kasusha in Tolstoy's Resurrection, translated by Shimamura. Kotsuya's song written by Shinpai Nakayama, which she sang in the film, became the huge hits, selling 20,000 copies at that time. Today, that 20,000 may not be a big number, but that time that is the biggest number. Introducing caramel to Japan by Morinaga Mill. Today, if you go, you can see Morinaga name everywhere, wherever there's a biscuits or any of those products like that. Caramel is a sweet that can be said to be the origin of Morinaga Company Limited. Tochiro Morinaga, the first president who trained as a confectioner in the United States, was impressed by the caramel he ate during his training, and even Japanese children were impressed by such a nutritious food. It seems that he started making caramel after returning to Japan because he wanted to eat it. He introduced caramel to Japan on June 10th, 1913. And so he is introduced here to all of you. Now, we have the century stamp 3. Now, if you look at this stamp, on the top left, you have on the full sheet on the top right, and on the explanation sheet on the top left is 2 stamps together, giving a Saturn and pair. The Saturn and pair is of size 56 by 37, almost that has become the standard size. And then the whole sheet has got 10 stamps. Again, a combination of 50 yens 2 and 80 yens rest. The same thing they have been following for the whole series. And down below you have some of the stamps, and also I think that's the Tokyo station that they have there. Now let's look into the individual stamps. In 1889, a Tokyo Municipal Committee drew up plans for an elevated railway line connecting Tokyo Main Line Terminal in Shimbashi to the Nippon Railway, now Tokyo Main Line Terminal at Ueno. Okay, so on the Saturn Pair, what you see is the Tokyo Main Railway Station on the Marunouchi side, a building which is designed based on the western style. The center and the bottom pictures were taken by me from a building opposite to that. Now, the Imperial Diet resolved in 1896 to construct a new station on this line called the Central Station, located directly in front of the gardens of the Imperial Palace. So right behind this is, you can see, if you go on top of the building opposite to the Tokyo Main Station, and from the roof garden, you can see Imperial Palace, and beyond that, the Diet also. The Tokyo Station opened on December 20th, 1914 with 4 platforms. Today, there are, I think, 14 platforms, and especially for more than 14 platforms, I think 22 platforms now. And Shinkansen for both North and South starts from Tokyo. Okay. Navy candidates in First World War 1914. Japan entered World War I on the side of the France, Britain, Russia. That's called Entente. And Italy, Japan, USA, they all formed against Germany and Austria-Hungary. During the siege, German port Tisingoto, now this names in China, beginning on 5th September 1914, Okamiya conducted the first world successful sea-launched airstrikes. So, Navy candidates, they become a part of this thing. Now, next is the Japanese started after the Meiji Western style hairstyle. Now, Nihongami, that is at the end of Meiji period, 1920, Nihongami, traditional bundle hairstyle was still popular, but was mixed with the styles of many women were wearing at that time in Europe. The 1920 magazine started dictating fashion in the 20s as a wavy, permed hair, and it became a standard to look. Many women chose Mimi Kakushi, hidden hair. Mimi is the ear, Kakushi is hidden, haircut with a stylish clip. In 1930, Japanese women embraced the international modern girl look, including bob haircuts and fitted hats. The hair becomes synonymous with a modern girl style, and the cut is referred to monga, okay, like a modern girl. So therefore, that style has also found a place in the 1920 stamps. Then we have the Rashomon. Rashomon is, we all know, is a psychological thriller crime film directed by the famous Akira Kurosawa. The plot and characters based on Ryonosuke Akutaga's short story In a Grove, with the title and framing story being based on Rashomon, another short story by Akutagawa. He was Japanese writer active in the Taisho period in Japan. He is regarded as the father of the Japanese short story and Japan's premier literary award, as the Akugawa Award. Award was named after him. So there's a picture of the great Ryonosuke Akutagawa. His photograph is part of this thing. Then 23 stamps, 20th century stamp series. If you see, there are a few stamps. One is 1966, 1966 celebrated the 50 years of Japan Postal Life Insurance. You can see the certificate and the stamp, Postal Life Insurance stamp. 1916, if you remember, we also showed in the Japan Postal History, commercial postal life insurance business stamps are there, which we have shown. Now, Yoshino, okay, and Yoshino Sakuzo, January 29, 1878, 33, was a Japanese academic, historian, author and professor of political science. Yoshino was an active political thinker in the Taisho period. He is best known for the formulation of the theory of Minponshugi, politics and people. Minponshugi, or politics of the people. Yoshino argued that democracy was compatible with the concept of emperor's sovereignty. In December 1918, Yoshino joined the others to establish Reimeikai, which was society to propagate ideas of democracy along with people. So he finds a place in the stamps. Now, the Rice Riots of 1918, Komosodo, a series of popular disturbances that erupted throughout Japan. So you can see the popular riots on the left-hand side from July to September 1918, which brought about the collapse of the Terauchi Masatake administration. In 1918, there were 417 separate disputes involving more than 66,000 workers. Some 25,000 people were arrested, after whom 8,200 were convicted on various crimes, with punishment ranging from minor fines to death penalty. That is the 1918 Rice Riots. So the Rice Riots also find a place in this. Then you may, next is a painting of a couple in a boat. You can see on the left-hand side is a painting of a couple in a boat. Right-hand side, you can see the painter, okay? Yume Takehisa was born as Mojiro Takehisa. Many of them, they change their name depending on who were their guru or something. So his name became Yumeji Takehisa. Was a Japanese poet and a painter. He is known for the foremost Nihonga illustrations of Bijin. Bijin is beautiful Japanese girls, women and girls. He produced a wide variety of works. He wrote the concept of Japanese painting, a handwritten guide to the various styles in ink wash painting. This is what you call as ink wash painting. That is translated also into German language because many were trying to follow the style. Now we have the 20th century stamp series 4. Now if you look at this series, now you have 50 cents stamps coming in as a settlement, and then we have the 80 yen stamps. So again, this has got 10 stamps, 50 and 10, 20 yen. The names of the thing, we'll be explaining all the every stamp, what is the background, why it is finding a place there. And of course, if you have seen the settlement stamp, people are waiting for a train. And if you look at the train has got not sky above them, but a roof above them. That means that this train is inside underground. So when Ginza line was first opened, it is painted yellow, still it retains a yellow color. So this is showing the yellow. It's a first underground train that ran. So we'll see the details about that. This is again 50 by 37 millimeters, and it's a second end. And again, it has been for bringing out the inauguration of Ginza line and people waiting to board the thing. It's a commemorative issue of that line. Now, if you see the one stamp people are running called Ekiden, okay, Hakone Ekiden, officially called Tokyo Hakone Round Trip College Ekiden Race. Ekiden race is one of the most prominent university relay marathon. Ekiden is a relay marathon. Races that year held between Tokyo and Hakone on January 2nd and 3rd. This 2-day race from Otemachi to Hakone and back is separated into 5 legs on each day. Due to the slight variation of courses, the first day distance is 107.5 kilometers, while the distance on the second day is 109.6 kilometers. 20 universities which belong to the Inter-University Athletic Union of Kanto can participate in this hackathon. This is for the universities only, this relay is there. So they were running this about almost 107 kilometers in the first day, and second day 109 kilometers. Okay. And they separate into 5 legs on each day. Okay. Bansuma Bado. Okay. That is Suma Saburos, Bansuma Bado. Bando is one of the most prominent Japanese actors of the 20th century, famous for his rebellious sword fighting roles in many Jidaigeki silent films. He rose to fame after joining the Tojin studio of Makino Film Productions in Kyoto in 1923. Batsuma's films, particularly his early works, would not be complete without the first-paced sword fighting scenes that always guaranteed to raise the heart rates of his audience. That's Bando on the left in the film strip, with his sword sticking out, and he was known for his sword fighting scenes. Okay, Gondola no Uta is 1915 romantic ballad that is popular in Taisho period 19 Japan. Lyrics were written by Isamu Yoji, melody by Shinpai Nakayama. Before also, we have seen Nakayama's given a music for the Western music into Japanese song. The lyrics of the songs are presented as advance of an experienced individual to younger souls regarding the feeling nature of youth and caution against missing opportunities of youth when they are available before they have passed with a growing age. So that's a romantic ballad. So this is also popular at that time. Now down below you can see a stamp of Great Kanto earthquake struck in Kanto Plain. 1923 there was an earthquake in Kanto, that's the Tokyo area, a very famous Kanto earthquake that happened on September 1st, Saturday. Varied accounts indicate that the duration of the earthquake was between 4 to 10 minutes. It's a very long earthquake, 10 minutes means. Extensive firestorm and even a fire whirl added to the death roll. The earthquake had a magnitude of 7.9 on the moment magnitude scale, which is the focus deep beneath Izu Peninsula, because all these earthquakes happen above or below the sea level also in Sagami Bay. Since 1960, September 1 has been, so since then, 1960 onward, the September 1st has been designated as a disaster prevention day. Now, that's why they say Japanese, they regard nature as an enemy as well as a friend. And Japan is sitting in the ring of fire, which is very connecting number of countries. And Japan is sitting almost in the center of that, starting almost from Philippines up to even Europe and up to US and other Latinos down below. Maybe another time we should see them also. And now Japan had all these things. So nature was an enemy as well as a friend. But what Japanese knew, which we should give the credit to, is they know how to bounce back. The perseverance to bounce back, their patience to wait, and their resilience. The 3 big factors that helped Japan to come back and rebuild anytime they had a disaster because of calamity or a disaster due to nature. Okay. Yatako Aso is a pioneer of Japanese comics. He created the popular series Ninki no Tozan, Daddy Easy Going, shortly after the Great Kanto earthquake in September 23. The strip was the first serial of multi-panel cartoon to appear in a Japanese newspaper, the Hochi Shimbun, for over 600 episodes. Shortly after World War II, also created a series of 22 drawings about the post-war rehabilitation of country's most famous shopping district called Ginza Picture Scroll 1946-57. In 2006, it was announced that Ninki no Tozan is a short form of affectionately calling Otosan the father, would become a logo for the main shopping district in Oita prefecture called Usa. Now, next is the interesting thing, Shochan. Shochan is a very old manga, Japanese comic character, created as the early parts of 20th century in Japan. In his first story, Otogi Shocho-san no Bouken was created in 1923. He may be called as a forerunner of Tintin. You all must be knowing the famous Tintin. Tintin was created in 1929. The Shochan was created in 1923. Shochan is a youth journalist, okay, like Tintin, for the newspaper Asahi. He is a talking animal friend, like Snowy, that a large chipmunk called Risu. Tintin has a small, smart dog called Snowy. Okay, here he has got this chipmunk with him. The adventures of Tintin are very realistic, but adventures of Shochan are more fantastic. He goes to heaven, encounters monsters and creatures, all that. But it's a very famous cartoon. So the Oto-san, who is easygoing, and Shochan, who is a young journalist, both find place in the 20th century stamp series 4. Okay. The renowned red-crowned crane is a large East Asian crane, among the rarest cranes in the world. It's some sort of range. It is known as the symbol of luck, longevity, and fidelity. The crane is one. Then Kame, the tortoise, that's another one which is also known for longevity, luck, and but the cranes, like the cranes that we see even in India, where if you see, they're called Saryu cranes, I think. They are also known for longevity, luck, and fidelity. In addition to migratory population, a resident population is found in eastern Hokkaido. The species nests in wetlands, marshes, and rivers. The population of red-crowned cranes in Japan is mostly non-migratory. They are locally staying there forever, with the race in Hokkaido moving only 150 kilometers to its wintering grounds. Only the mainland population experience a long-distance migration. Otherwise, major portion of them, they are endemic, sticking on to that same place. Hanshin Koishin Stadium, commonly referred to as Koishien Stadium, is a baseball park located near Kobe, Ishinomiya, Hyogo Prefecture. The stadium was built to host the national high school and baseball tournaments and opened on August 1st, 1924. The name Koishien comes from the wood rat of the sexagenary cycle system. The year of stadiums, because we have 12 zodiac animals borrowed from the Chinese thing. So they have used, okay. So the wood rat must be one of rat, must be one of the things. So the year in which the stadium was built, that is the year of the wood rat. So that gets the name wood rat stadium. Then the next one is after 1872 fire. Okay, Ginza was rebuilt, became the hub of fashion. But in 1923, Kanto earthquake again destroyed Ginza. Mostly in this, you see 1923 period. So it cannot go without mentioning the Kanto earthquake. Okay, then it is rebuilt and became trendy in Western fashion. Ginza became the hub of modernity. Ginza seemed to be embodied by the national pursuit of civilization and enlightenment, which became the strolling place of Ginza Bura. Ginza Bura, Bura Bura, so Ginza Bura, they just strolling place, which entered a popular Japanese lexicon. The modern garu and modern boy. Modern garu is modern girl, modern boy is modern boy. They're exhibiting their modern raifu, in the rebuilt Ginza in 1930, Ginza Bura. That is the picture you can see. Their dress chain, stylish chain with a hat, both are wearing a hat and going around. Matsunosuke Onoye was a Japanese actor and he was a kabuki artist. He went by the name Tsurusaburo Onoye. He gained great popularity, appearing over 1,000 films, and he has been called as the first superstar of Japanese cinema. He played the lead characters almost all dramatization of stories published in Tachikawa Bunko, which at that time was the best-selling publisher. He and his troupe had remained closely associated with Makino for over a decade. And Makino directed Onoe in 60 to 80 films per year, ultimately accounting for half of Ono's total output. Now, 20th Century Stamp Series 5. If you can see, this time you got again 50 yen stamps 2 and 80 yen stamps rest. Look at them. Now, Tsuruta Yoshiyuki, swimmer, gold medal winner, Olympic Games. After his victory in 1928 in 2,000 meter breaststroke, Yoshiyuki Tsuruta won another gold medal in Los Angeles in 1932. He set a world record of 2.45 minutes in that 200 meter breaststroke. He was admitted into International Swimming Hall of Fame in 1968 and was awarded Japanese Order of the Rising Sun. In 1980, he received the Olympic Order of Silver. Oda Mikio is an athlete, gold medal winner in Olympic Games. At the Olympic Games of Amsterdam, Oda edged Levi Keski of the United States by 4 centimeters to win the gold medal for the triple jump event, with the result of 15.21 meters, becoming the first Japanese athlete to win an Olympic gold medal and became Asia's first Olympic champion in an individual event. When the Olympic Games were held in Tokyo in 1964, the Olympic flag was raised to a height of 15.21 meters, and the honor was given to Oda's winning Olympic jump of 36 meters earlier. Amsterdam Olympic Games. Okay, in 1928 Summer Olympics, commonly known as Amsterdam 28, is an international multi-sport event that is celebrated on 28 July to 12th August 1928, Amsterdam, Netherlands. The city of Amsterdam had previously bid for the 1920 and 1924 Olympic Games, but was obliged to give away war-torn Antwerp, Belgium for the 1920 Games and Paris for the 1924 Paris for the 1924 Games. So, Belgium, Antwerp, Belgium for the 1920 Games and Paris for the 24 Games. The only other candidate for the 1928 Olympics was Los Angeles, which has eventually been selected to host the Olympics 4 years later. The preparation for the 1932 Summer Olympics. Okay, Hitomi Kinoue, sprinter, silver medal winner, Olympic Games. Hitomi Kinoue was a Japanese track and field athlete. She was a world record holder in several events in 1920 and 1930. Was the first Japanese woman to win an Olympic medal. She was also the first woman to represent Japan at the Olympics. Hitomi ran 2.26.2 seconds minutes and seconds in the preliminary and received silver medal in the final with a time of 2.17, 2 minutes and 17.6 seconds in a race won by Linda Radke by 2 minutes and 16.8 seconds, only few 0.8 of a second. She became the first Japanese woman to win the Olympic medal. Emergence of cafe for social gathering. Cafe shops of modern Japanese history served as symbols of modernity and channels of westernization. The first cafes were established during Meiji period and drew inspiration directly from the European counterparts. The coffee shops provided a channel through which new, the most part Western ideas, styles, and trends entered Japan, providing a figurative window of the world. Okay, and the cover of this is the cover of this novel, Oroki, novel by Hayashi Fumiko. Oroki, a diary of the vagabond, was the first novel by Hayashi Fumiko, whose prolific writing career spanned the pre-war, wartime, and the post-war eras until her death in 1951. The novel was remarkable in its assiduous use of language, fast-paced montage texture, and its compelling subject matter, which focused on the struggle of an independent young woman to find work, living space, personal fulfillment in the rapidly changing urban environment in the 1920s in Tokyo. So she is there. Now, opening of Tokyo first underground metro Ginza line. Okay, the Tokyo Underground Railway that opened Japan's first Tokyo Underground Railway Company Limited opened the first underground line in subway Ginza line in December 30th, 1927, and publicized the first underground railway in the Orient, a distance of 2.2 kilometers between Ueno and Asakusa. These days, Japan has had some of the best railways in the world, but it is latecomer to the subways, even though they are the best. Underground trains appeared in London 1863, Paris 1900, other major cities decades around the turn of the century. But in Japan, it is only 1927. While Japan's first railway inaugurated in 1872, joining Shiogame and Yokohama, the subway took 54 years after that, and it might have been no longer, it wasn't for the ambitious businessman Hayakawa. Arashi Kanjiro in the title role of Kurama Tengu film. Kurama Tengu or Kyofu Jidai, the frightful era of Kurama Tengu, is a 1928 black and white Japanese silent film with Benshi accompaniment directed by Teppei Yamaguchi. It is a part of the Kurama Tengu series and features and battle between the character Kurama Tengu and the imposter. The last scene featuring a sword fight of exhilarating screen is one reason the series was very, very popular, and especially with children, and that is a silent movie. First radio broadcast of gymnastic exercise. Okay, radio calisthenics is Regio Taiso. Regio Taiso literally known as radio exercises or warm-up performed to the music in the offices everywhere and guidance from the radio broadcast. Regio Taisho was introduced in Japan 1928 and as a commemoration for the coronation of Emperor Hirohito. The idea of radio broadcast came from the US. Visiting employees of Japanese Postal Insurance Division brought samples of the exercise from the US back to Japan. The exercise was widely used to improve the overall health of the employees. Then the last one, stamp series 6, you can see, I'll talk to you about each of the stamps. Datsun model 11, 1932, and Toyota model AA 1936. 1932 Datsun Type 11 was a small car of 495 cc and 10 horsepower and 3-speed transmission, and it has offered several body styles that Nissan sold 150 of the Type 11 in 1932. Type 11 was only produced during the year 1932. The changes allowed to Nissan to sell new model largest engine in 1933. The A1 was the first prototype passenger car built by the company that became Toyota. It was redesigned and put into production in Toyota's first production car as AA sedan, AB cabriolet, and those were successful similar AEEC, AC, and BA sedans. These were succeeded by this series AE, AC, and BA. The series was whole replaced by the quite different, much more advanced SA later. You can see the SA car down below. Mount Asama is the active complex volcano in the central Honshu. The volcano is the most active in Honshu between 1990 and 1930. It had erupted 10 times and last thing was 2019. The Japan Meteorological Agency classified Mount Asama as rank E. It stands 2,568 meters above sea level in the border of Gunma and Nagano Prefecture. It is included in 100 famous Japanese mountains. Narakuro is a Japanese comic or manga series created by Tagawa, originally published by Kodansha. The titular protagonist Nakaruguro or Narakuro-kun is anthropomorphic black and white dog inspired by Felix the cat. The name Narakuro is an abbreviation of Norainu and Kurokishi, the name of the dog, literally meaning black luck. Okay, is the other one, anthropomorphism, is arbitrary as attribution of human traits, emotions, and intentions of non-human entities. So the Narakura must be exhibiting those sort of things. And Takeji Kobayashi was a Japanese author of proletarian literature, left-wing writers mainly for the class-conscious projections. His best known was a short novel, Kaniko-san, The Crop Cannery Ship, published in 1929. It tells the story of hard life for cannery workers, fishermen and seamen on board of a cannery ship, and beginning their revolt against the company and its managers. The young writer died due to violent torture after arrest by the Tokyo police 2 years later, at the age of 29. In 1920, Western influence dressed to men and women could be seen in their daily life. Men wear open-necked shirts and jacket and hat, and women carried handbags. You can see them in the picture. Okay, then we have Wakataka, winner of the first Japanese derby. The horse, Wakataka, the Tokyo Yusan, or the Japanese derby, is grade 1 flat horse race in Japan for 3 years. Old thoroughbred colts and fillies run over the distance of 2,400 meters, approximately 1 mile 4 furlong at the Tokyo racecourse, Fuchu, Tokyo. It is the first run and run 1932 and is the Japanese equivalent to the English Epsom Derby. Then we have the winner of the Japanese Derby 1933 called Kobutoyama. Early winners were Wakataka and Kobutoyama. Then we have the orchestration of the song. Renjin no Uta was written by Masao Koga, and the performance reportedly had such an impact on him that he rushed home immediately afterward to finish the song. He has been struggling to call Kage no Shitaite, Endearing Shadow. It was the track that the composer successfully merged the Japanese melody with the flair and techniques of Spanish guitar, a skill that would later be tagged as the Koga melody. This form eventually evolved into enka music genre, and that took the country by storm in 1970. On May 15th, incident was an attempt coup it was a coup in the Empire of Japan. On May 15th, 1932, launched by reactionary elements in the Imperial Japanese Navy, aided by cadets of the Imperial Japanese Army and some civilian. Prime Minister Inuki Tsuyoshi was assassinated by 11 young naval officers. The following trial and popular support of the Japanese population led to extremely light sentences for the assassin, a sign of weakening democracy and the role of law in the Empire of Japan. So that brings us to the close. Thank you. Next week, we'll see the next 6 series. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.